Hello, my name is John Fortner, and I'm here with my partner.
Brendan Villa, and we are going to be talking about quotations from Chairman Mao Tse-Tung and his Little Red Book.
Okay, so we will start off with the pronunciation. The Chinese title of the book is, as best as I can manage, Mao Zi Shi Yu Lu, with Mao in the second tone, Zi Shi in the third and then the second tone, and then Yu Lu in the third and the fourth tone.
So here is the appearance of the book. As you can see, it is very red, and it is meant to be little, because it is meant to fit in a small pocket. And as this book was provided to the Red Guard, um, and eventually to every Chinese citizen, it was meant to be durable, so it was made small, rugged, and waterproof. And as you can see, there's a picture of Mao in the middle with the brilliant sun around him, with the name on the cover.
Okay, so for some historical context to surround the beginning of the creation of the book, in 1921, Mao became a founding member of the Chinese Communist Party in what was then the Republic of China. And in 1923, Chiang Kai-shek of the KMT allied with Mao and his Communist Party against warlords in northern China. And after their victory against those warlords, the KMT launched an anti-communist purge, which forced Mao and other communists to retreat to southeast China. And in 1934, Mao and the communists were surrounded by the Kuomintang, and this is when what occurred, or what we now refer to as the Long March. This is when that occurred, where Mao and the communists traveled 6,000 miles to northwest China to set up a new base. And in 1937, the Kuomintang and the CCP once again formed a tentative alliance as the Second Sino-Japanese War became a bigger threat than either of them were to each other. Although this alliance was undercut by some infighting, with Chiang Kai-shek once saying, "The Japanese are a disease of the skin, and the communists are a disease of the heart."
And here is a map of Mao's Long March and his travel to northwest China.
Okay, so after the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Chinese Civil War quickly restarted, but this time in the second phase, the Chinese communists came out victorious, forcing the Kuomintang all the way back to Taiwan in what is known as the Great Retreat of the KMT and Chiang Kai-shek. And in 1949, Mao proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China under the new Chinese Communist Party. Later on, in 1958, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, intending to increase agricultural and industrial production in order to catch up with the Western world. That's when, and then, however, despite the intentions of the movement, it led to the deaths of millions of people due to famine and other causes precipitated by this Great Leap Forward. Later on in 1966, in order to regain some popularity, as well as he said, to rid the country of impure elements and revive the revolutionary spirit, Chairman Mao launched the Cultural Revolution, which included the publication of the quotations from Chairman Mao Tse-tung from 1964 to 1976.
And with that, this led to the publication of the literary book. And it was originally compiled in an office of the People's Liberation Army Daily, and it was an inspirational political and military document. And its first publication covered 22 topics with 200 selected quotations. It was given to delegates of a conference in 1964. In response to these deputies, it was expanded to 25 topics with 267 quotations. The book was reissued to delegates and select units of the People's Liberation Army, and they received their copies for educating troops, as well as their comments. The book was later revised and added a title page with the slogan, "Workers of the World Unite," and this provided inspiration for the People's Liberation Army. And so the book was expanded twice more, and it was finally finalized with 33 topics and 400 different quotations from Chairman Mao. And this version of the book was finally ready to be published to the masses as a definitive version. And the ultimate goal was for 99% of the Chinese population to have read this literary book. In order to fulfill this quota, several regions across China were ordered to build new printing houses, and China did experience a paper shortage at the time. And it's no surprise as over 1 billion copies were reportedly printed.
Okay, so an insight into why so many were printed. The idea was that the book was intended to bring Maoism and Maoist thought to the masses. And think like the idea being that this would unite the country under the communist ideology. So the book was used during the Cultural Revolution to streamline this ideology and create an ideological uniformity under the communist ideals. It had to be coherent to the masses of China, who were often semi-literate or even illiterate peasants. But this made putting Mao's thoughts into a small, portable, durable book was a great medium for spreading his ideology to the large population of China.
And having the thoughts of context made it easier for the semi-literate peasants to actually understand the thoughts.
Yes. So in the bottom right, you can see a woman, communist soldier, holding up the Little Red Book with an image of Mao behind her, and on the bottom left is a cart full of Little Red Books, likely to be distributed to the Chinese.
Yeah, as this book was distributed to a very large amount of people, it became a very recognizable, it was the most recognizable symbol in the People's Republic of China, and it was always in the hand of political figures and images of propaganda. And I'm sure you guys have noticed that in previous pictures of images of propaganda we've seen, the Little Red Book was present, and the people were holding it. And as you can see with these pictures as well, in the picture to the left, there is a very large figure holding the book, and to the bottom there are small figures which they are also in the book. And to the right there is a image with girls reading the book and an image of Mao in the background. Again, this book was meant to provide them with inspiration and a view into Mao's thoughts and his teachings.
Okay, so the Little Red Book had a very significant role in the Cultural Revolution. When Mao announced the beginning of the Cultural Revolution, some radicals quickly united around him in order to, as they saw it, purge the Chinese Communist Party of officials whom Mao claimed were against the ideals of the revolution, and also of impure elements present in China still from the feudalist society that they claimed had preceded them, and also of people they saw as capitalist or imperialist sympathizers, so like small business owners, people like that. And to encourage this sort of personality cult that sprang up around Mao at the onset of the Cultural Revolution, Defense Minister Lin Biao saw that the Little Red Book was printed and distributed throughout China in order to unify the general population around Mao and create public support for this Cultural Revolution. Mao reportedly liked the book's resemblance to other books of quotations by philosophers like Confucius, saying it looked like the Analects or a book like that, and should, as in his eyes, be of equal importance. The universal presence of the book made it a perfect symbol for radicals to rally behind, which they did. The Cultural Revolution resulted in an incredible amount of humiliation and torture of people that the radicals saw as unfit for communism or disaligned with the principles of the party and the ideology. And it also oversaw the deaths of over 1 million people.
Here are more pictures presenting the Red Book and propaganda. As you can see to the left, there is a picture of Chairman Mao next to Lin Biao holding a copy of the Red Book. And as you can see, the book is very small, where it could fit in his pocket. Bottom left, there's a picture of a communist woman who appears to be some kind of speech in which she is holding up the book and its importance, and people are cheering and rallying behind her. And to the bottom right, there are Chinese communist soldiers reading from the book, as again, the book was meant to provide inspiration for them and educate them.
Okay, so now we want to go into the actual contents of the book. The Little Red Book is organized into 33 chapters, and each of them contains quotations related to one specific topic. And because there are so many chapters, we decided that we don't want to go through all of them, but we do want to discuss some of the more significant topics in more depth. So now on to the significant topics.
So here are some famous quotations from the book. Every communist must grasp the truth. Political power grows out of the barrel of the gun. And this demonstrates the idea that sometimes violent revolution is necessary to achieve this political power, but it is just. The second quote is, all reactionaries are paper tigers. In appearance, the reactionaries are terrifying, but in reality, they are not so powerful. And this will be talked about more later, but essentially it's talking about how Western powers are at first intimidating, but after a while their true strength is actually shown, that they're not as powerful as they first appeared. And the third one is, a revolution is not a dinner party, or writing an essay, or painting a picture, or doing embroidery. Revolution is insurrection, an act of violence by which one class overthrows another.
Okay, so the first chapter of the book, and the first one we want to discuss, is concerns the Communist Party. It describes how the Communist Party was the core of the revolution and the core of the government, with principles based upon Marxism and Leninism, as was laid out in the Soviet Union. It advises that criticism should be carried out from within the party in order to maintain unity and maintain power in influencing the masses and leading the country into a better life for the masses.
This next chapter is about war and peace, and it talks about how war is a continuation of politics, and it also explains that there are unjust wars and there are also just wars. And just wars are fought through the society of imperialist agitations.
Okay, so the next chapter we want to discuss is imperialism, and all reactionaries are paper tigers. This is the chapter that includes the famous quote, all reactionaries are paper tigers. So the main idea, as was laid out in that quote, but as described throughout the chapter, is that U.S. imperialism and European domestic forces represent real dangers, just like tigers. However, though they appear dangerous, because the goal of Chinese communism is just, and the Chinese people are just, while the U.S. and European interests are unjust, serving capitalism and imperialist interests, the U.S. and European interests will eventually be revealed as less dangerous than they were initially perceived to be, as they will inevitably collapse into chaos, while the Chinese Communist Party will prevail and be able to stand up against what appears to them right now as dangerous.
This chapter is about the mass line, and it talks about how the mass line represents the creative and productive energies of the people, and that the party should follow the will of the masses and take action explicitly for their benefit. Because the masses have boundless creative power, and the party should go along these ideas.
Okay, so this next chapter is patriotism and internationalism. The main idea behind this one is that Chinese patriotism and internationalist sympathy, or sympathy for just struggles in other nations, are not mutually exclusive, but are in fact implicitly connected, because a pride in communism implies a desire to see it spread throughout the world, relieving struggles internationally. So a significant idea of this is the idea that although it's okay to be proud, like it's good to be proud of China and patriotic, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't feel a sympathy for those workers struggling in capitalist nations. So it's important, like both of these are important and they are both intertwined with each other.
This next chapter is about unity of the masses, and that the unity of the people and the party and the whole country is essential, and that constructive criticism may take place between comrades, but it must be ensured that a basic unity is felt and preserved. Essentially talking about the idea that that everyone should unite, and it is only through this unification that the unity of the whole class and the whole nation can actually be achieved.
Okay, so this chapter is about communists. This chapter has a lot of quotes describing virtuous qualities of the ideal communist, very similar to how those in Ren are described in something like the Analects by Confucius. So some of the core values are selflessness. That's one of the biggest deals in communism, due to the idea that your personal interests are far below those of the group and those around you. So you must have the interests of the masses at heart, and also a largeness of mind with a practical mindset is another ideal.
Chapter is about gender equality. Women. It says that women are a good production force, and gender equality is an important Chinese communism. So this is something we talked about a lot in this previous unit. And I saw a question somewhere that the gender equality movement was really for women's liberation, or if it was for exploitation of their production possibility. And well, this chapter kind of states that in a way it was both, because women do become more equal, but in becoming more equal, it becomes necessary for them to actually contribute to the production of in China. And she has to, in order to achieve this quality, she has to take a place in the labor front.
Okay, so this slide contains several images of Chairman Mao playing ping pong, which he was reportedly very good at. But the image on the far left is actually included in the final version of the Little Red Book that was published to the masses, along with many other images that glorified Mao and the ideology which he led and represented.
So the book today is often seen as a symbol of Mao Tse-Tung's thought, and sometimes given as a gift in certain instances, such as congratulating newlyweds or when personal events arise. The book was actually not originally called the Little Red Book, but due to its small, erect appearance, it was given its nickname by Western presses, foreign press, and after the Cultural Revolution, China also began to use the name. And today, the book is no longer has political significance, and is rather a book of nostalgia. It is very popular among collectors, and rare and usually printing actually goes to high prices. And so, between becoming the most recognizable symbol in China in the 1960s and becoming such a significant symbol of Maoism, the Little Red Book is remembered as a significant contribution to the Cultural Revolution, as it provided a streamlined ideology to Mao's efforts in creating his communist utopia.
Okay, so we wanted to finish up with some discussion questions. So to what extent do you believe the Little Red Book influenced the ability of Mao to retain power during the Cultural Revolution?
And then another one is, where have you noticed the Little Red Book before, and how did it contribute to the representation of that image?
And finally, what does the prevalence of the Little Red Book in both propaganda and Chinese society indicate about its power in exerting influence in Chinese society? Okay, and that's all.
Yeah, that's our presentation. Thanks for listening. You are now more informed about the Little Red Book.